Number 11 on our list is tracking transactions. Here's what we've done over the past 6 years. Total transactions of 147, 95 of which were associated with used houses and 52 associated with new houses. Some figures I'll just point out here is out of the 147, 22 were cash buyers, and that broke down to 17 and 17 and 5 here. And out of the 147 transactions, 125 were lease option. One of the most interesting figures for me, for us, is this row down here that talks about defaults. Out of 147 transactions during this 6-year period, we had 26% default. But when we broke that down between new and used, we only had 3 defaults out of 52 new homes. 6% of those defaulted over the 6-year period versus 37% with the repo houses. And the repo houses are fixed up as nice as we can fix them. The buyers are going through the same qualification process. We use the same PQW on everybody, a pre-qualification worksheet. So it's not an apples to oranges comparison. It's a used house versus a new house. And our experience with default, so the numbers kind of speak for themselves. When we look at defaults on a year basis, 13% of the transactions associated with used houses defaulted within the first year. An amazing statistic. You think somebody comes in and pays $2,000 or $3,000 to move into a used house, and 13% of them default within the first year versus 2. And that one new house default just happened, what, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, something like that, November. The second year, it's 10 versus 0. The third year, 10 versus 2. The fourth year, 4 versus 2. 5 is 0. 6 is 0. So in total, it's 37% defaults on the transactions involving used houses versus 6% on the new houses. This is what our default rates have done since 2003. They've obviously come down, and I'd always like to see them lower, but I'm pretty happy, I guess, with where we are now. Obviously, we try to give as much thought as possible to what is affecting our default rates. And when we went back and looked at this, what we concluded is that the 2 most important reasons that our default rates came down were, 1, because of the pre-qualification worksheet that we use, and number 2, the fact that we've been selling new houses. So default rates affect one aspect of cost, but the other is the actual cost of the default itself. So when we look at our default-related costs, we're looking at the rate, we're looking at the cost of the default, which is how much they owed at the time they moved out, what the rehab costs are, what the carrying costs are, and what the resale price was. On the 2 new homes that we had, I know you can't read this slide, I think I have a handout of it in the back, but these 2 defaults that we had were sold almost immediately. Both of the houses were in excellent condition. I don't think we actually spent anything at all on either one of the houses. So they were very, very good experiences for us in terms of cost. I mentioned the Texas economy. Everybody but the Texas Department of Commerce knows that Texas economy is heavily influenced by oil and gas. That's the good news, and the bad news is the same. So when oil prices started tanking a couple years ago, we got really nervous, wondering if that soft economy was going to result in higher defaults for us. And in actuality, we didn't experience any unusual high defaults during that period, and still have not. And our justification, our reason, our explanation is that those people bought an attractive, functional house in the first place. They got a good deal. Their payments were low, the term was short, and the lot rent was reasonable. So I think if you combine those factors, even if the economy does get tight, I think that you're going to find that your defaults are still not going to increase significantly. In conclusion, our experience over the past 20-so years is that new homes are easier and quicker to sell. They attract upscale residents, they attract satisfied buyers, fewer defaults, and they upgrade our communities. So we have obviously become believers in the Community Series home.